Parallel Planets podcast.
I'm here with Andy Bevis, who is a app developer from Worthing, and he's got a rather unusual story to tell me. And Andy, you gave me a brief synopsis when we met up a couple of weeks ago, but perhaps you could start from the top and explain what happened to you.
Okay, so it's a while ago now. I've established it would have been July 1998.
Right.
I was living in Peterborough at the time in a place called Alton Wistow, and I was working on a business park very close to where I live. It would have been about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'll just turn my phone off just for a second.
Yeah, no worries.
So it would have been about anywhere between 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was walking home. It's only be about 3 or 4 minute walk home from the office, and I was walking past a pub called the Checkers at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. It's a Tesco's Express, but I recall at the time, which is why I can fairly accurately date and time it, is that they were having some pipe work done, be it sewage or gas or something, but there was big channels dug up with all the big poly pipes at the side. So that's, I did a bit of digging and found out that's when they had their work. So I was just walking past the Checkers, and I saw something in the sky, and I stopped, literally standing outside the pub. And it's a little difficult to describe because I guess this falls into the UFO category, but I wouldn't call it an object, if you like, because it had no 3D or depth to it. All I could see was a black triangle in the sky, like so. And it looked like a hole in the sky where it was completely black.
Like a portal.
Against the clear blue sky.
Right.
And it would move around slowly, sort of in such a fashion.
No.
And then it would get smaller and go larger again, very slowly. And so if it were an object, you say, is it going away from you and getting smaller, or is it coming back and closer? But it didn't feel like that. It just felt like a hole in the sky, and it was pitch black, completely black, that someone had just got a photograph of the sky and drawn a black marker, coloured it in, completely flat to the sky. It lasted about 3 minutes, and in those 3 minutes, first of all, a young lady came and stood next to me and was obviously watching in the same direction, the same thing. And about 10 seconds, 15 seconds later, a gent came to my left and was standing watching. So I don't think I was hallucinating, because other people were seeing it too. And I was facing southeast. I can provide you with maps later if you want to throw those up on the screen. But
yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. I was facing southeast, and about, I would guess, 15 miles away, there used to be an airbase.
Right.
And so I don't think there's anything connected with that. But to this day, I've never seen it again, and I can't explain what it was. Like I say, it didn't feel like a UFO or some sort of flying craft. It just seemed like a hole in the sky. So it's very difficult to get your head around, really.
Well, the fact that it... Sorry, go
on. No, so it's very difficult to describe, because, you expect it to be an object and to have form, but it was completely flat to the sky, and yeah, so very odd.
Well, this is the thing. It's what I was sort of quite eager to get you on here, is because obviously a regular UFO sighting would usually entail a 3D object. Triangular ones are common, cylinders, spheres, cigar shapes. But the fact that this sounds like, would you perhaps, to me, from what you said, it sounds to me like it was more like a portal or something along those lines.
That's what I thought. Maybe in the past, that's maybe what I thought. But it was such an impression. I can just see it vividly clear today. And replay the whole thing in my mind. So
you carry on. Go on.
So I've got absolutely no explanation, because, as I say, I've never seen it since. So
What's interesting is how you say it was completely pitch black, because that
yeah,
to me suggests that almost it wasn't just sucking in stuff. If it was a portal or some sort of black hole or something, uh,
yeah.
then it wasn't just sucking in the what would be the tangible matter, but it might have been sucking in the light and stuff around it as well,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah.
And obviously, it's good to it's. I know that you said it was 4:30 and you were on the way to the pub, because you know what some
I was
people are
actually on the
like.
way home, standing
Yeah.
outside the pub. I wasn't going in the pub that day, but no, I hadn't
Oh,
been
right.
drinking.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the
Um,
thing. People
Actually,
always
no, I was
find
stood
it.
outside the pub where I first saw it.
And people always find it very easy to say, well, you're obviously drunk then, or,
Yeah.
or drugs or everything. But I know you well enough to know that wasn't the case
Yeah.
before
And
anyone
as I
starts
say,
having a pop.
as I say, because there were two other people there that appeared probably after about 30 seconds after I'd watched it. As I say, a woman to my right and a man to my left, and they stayed for what would have been in the duration of about 2 minutes. And the very unusual thing about those people was that we were obviously all watching the same thing. We're all looking in the same direction, but we were completely silent. And when it disappeared, we just walked on our way without saying a word to each other.
No one said what the
Quite
hell was that or anything.
bizarre. Yeah, I mean, you would have expected to, I don't know why I didn't say anything, but you would
Yeah.
expect to say, what was that? Did you see? You would expect something, but we all just silently walked away, which is weird in itself.
Well, I was saying to Jason, who was on episode 1 a couple of weeks ago, that excuse me, sorry, a bit of fluff just nearly went in my mouth. That it seems that I think in my experience over the last sort of 20, 30 years that people have gradually found it easier to talk about this sort of thing without being fearful of being ridiculed or anything if they've seen something. I know you're not bothered and probably weren't bothered from day one, but some people get really
No,
uptight about this sort of
not
thing.
at all. That
And
said,
it's
though,
all,
it's only I don't, I haven't told that many people.
yeah.
Obviously, some friends and things like that. But it's not something that you. Obviously, when I saw you were doing a podcast, I thought, oh, that would be an interesting thing to relay
But
my story.
my point there is as well is maybe was it 1997 you said?
98, it would have been.
98, beg pardon. Yeah, so
I
1998, maybe
think it was
people
June.
was
Yeah, you need to just check at the beginning. I think it was June 98.
right. And I think, back then people maybe were still a bit worried. And the reason that no, maybe those two people didn't say anything to you was perhaps they were a bit worried and their brain couldn't compute what they'd just seen. So they didn't want to make
Potentially.
anything of it in case because they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
worried
yeah.
about being mocked or something,
Yeah,
you know?
potentially. Potentially.
Whereas, yeah, potentially, who knows? But whereas nowadays, if that sort of thing happened, it would all be videoed and put all over Facebook and X and Instagram and stuff. And
Yeah, I would have had a mobile phone, but I don't think it would have had video on it.
no, exactly. Yeah,
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 no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. And you said it was there was a military base nearby at the time as
Well,
well.
I think southeast. You're looking at Cambridge.
Yeah,
If you bear with me just a second, I'll
yeah, go on. Yeah,
pull up a map and
yeah,
I'll
cool.
try and give you more accurate. So
Aha,
yeah, so can you see my mouse?
I can. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this was the business park here,
yeah,
and this what is now a Tesco's Express was the pub
right.
called the Checkers. So
Cool.
I would have been standing here, and I would have been looking southwest. So if we pull out a little bit, I believe somewhere around Cambridge there was an airbase.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's
So
plenty of stuff goes on up
I
there
would have
and
been
into
looking this
Norfolk, isn't there?
direction.
Yeah.
I believe there may still be an airbase there, but yeah. But as I say, it was very difficult to gauge distance or anything. It just seemed when it got smaller and larger, was it going away from me or was it coming towards me? You didn't get that perception. It just sort of seemed static and it just seemed to be getting bigger and smaller. And it would move around slowly.
I remember reading something recently about that sort of thing. Someone was saying about how a rainbow can appear to be miles away from you, but also not that far away from you at exactly the same time.
Yeah, you get no
Is
perception of distance or depth. Yeah,
is that a similar sort of feeling to the
very
what you
much
saw?
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I couldn't tell. Couldn't make a guess at how far away it was or how close it was, or like I
That's
say, it
that
just
makes it
seemed,
even weirder, doesn't it?
yeah, it just
Yeah.
seemed a hole in the sky.
Wow.
That's all I can describe it as.
And then it gradually, what did you
Got
say? It
smaller and
gradually got
smaller and
smaller and
smaller
smaller,
until it disappeared.
and that was it. It was gone.
That was it, gone. I think I stood there for another 30 seconds or so, and then I moved on.
Blimey. So you had to stand there for 30 seconds trying to work out what had just happened, really, I
Or if it
suppose.
was going to come back, or
Yeah, right next to you or
I'd say
something. Yeah.
the whole thing lasted about 3 minutes.
That's a good amount of time for something like that as
Yeah, yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah. As I say, I
goodness.
wish potentially I wish I didn't recognise the people that were standing with me, so they didn't
Mm.
work on the business park or anything. But yeah, so to have it ratified that you're actually looking at something and not in your own head was useful. You know,
Exactly. Yeah,
because it was
exactly. So,
obvious it was obvious they were looking at it, because I briefly glanced at them to see see who they were, what they were doing.
yeah. Well,
But
good. And it clarifies that it's not, well, so many of these things happen to people on their own, and then some believe them and a lot of people don't, so it's nice to have people nearby.